My name is Thomas O'Regan, and over the last 4 years, me and my wife have 20x'd our property portfolio. Now, I'm a professional property investor, and I wanted to talk to you guys about the significance of immigration, the significance of the population growth here in Australia, and its effect on property values. Now, one of the main drivers of property values increasing is down to supply and demand. And in fact, supply and demand is one of the main price drivers for any product, service, or thing out there. If, for example, you need a toilet roll and there are no toilet rolls at the supermarket, or actually there's just one toilet roll at the supermarket and everyone else wants that toilet roll, then you're probably willing to pay more for it. Now, let's use another example. If, for example, there's no meat and you really like meat and so does everyone else, and there's a little tiny bit of meat or whatever it is, like eggs, and everyone knows it and everyone wants it, the price will go up. So when it comes to property, it's also the same. It's also a supply and demand. And the intrinsic value that is tied to property is in the land, okay? So the less land there is available, the more expensive the land will be. And let me make this clear about land as well and properties. Property values, land values are also only tied to the potential of that land to generate income. If there's no use, or said another way, the land is only worth the property is only worth what it can be used for. Let me put this into context. So, for example, if you go into Sydney or any other CBD in Australia, the land is worth far more, and when I say far more, I mean by a factor of 20,000 times far more than land in the country. Why? Because if you go in the country and you want to live in the country on like a desert or in some forest, it's useless. It's completely useless. No one wants it. No one wants to do it. It doesn't make any sense, and so on and so forth, right? But if, for example, you have a piece of land in the city, everyone wants that piece of land because it's got so much potential, right? It's got so much potential. You can do so many things with it. You can generate so much income from it. You could put a shop there. You could put a supermarket there. You could put a dormitory there. You could put a house there, and the list just goes on and on and on and on. Whereas, could you do any of those things with a small piece of land the same size in the country? No. That's why in the country, in a farmland, land is worth it can be worth less than $1 per square meter, but in the city, the land can be worth 20,000 times more, which is $20,000 per square meter, okay? So now that we understand that, supply and demand is what is one of the factors, one of the things that grow values in properties. Obviously, there's other things like inflation and other things like that, but what we're really going to drill into is the supply and demand factor, and it's how it's going to be affected. But what's happening with population growth here in Australia? Well, let's put this into context. When there was the most population growth ever in Australia's history, that was from 1945 to 1965. It was a 20-year period, and 2 million people over a 20-year period came to Australia. That was Australia's time when it had the highest population growth. Okay? Now let's compare it to today. Okay? Since 2022, over the last 3 years, Australia has had 500,000 people coming into Australia each year for 3 years. It's $1.5 million people have come to Australia in the last 3 years. That is huge. Like it's almost 20 times more than what the amount of people we had come in. Don't disregard what I just said, but it's a whole lot more people than we've ever had in history coming in at a short period of time. And we're probably going to continue like that. And if you got to understand like what, as an investor, I look at this and I think, what impact is this going to have on the economy? It's obviously going to boost the economy. So I've got to, me understanding that, I plan for it and I take advantage of it and I invest in that. Okay. Now, as a property investor, I understand that more people coming into the country is going to put pressure on actual supply and demand of property prices. So that tells me I need to continue buying properties because this is one of the best times when supply and demand is going to be at its peak here in Australia for properties. It's going to push the prices up. All this immigration is going to push the prices up. Some people may think, that's terrible, that's such a bad thing, oh my God, my kid, or I'm not going to be able to buy a property. It's just like, get over it. Yeah, I'm doing a video, thanks for, yeah. And then, so basically, sorry, that was just my wife, she interrupted. All good. But here, let me just finish on this. The property, the population growth in the United States at its peak was about 500,000 people per year, and that was between 1880 and 1920. So there's a 40-year period. They had about 23 million people come into the country in that 20-year period. Now look at America. Look at the powerhouse of an economy that is. Now, if we continue on this trajectory, we are gonna end up like that. And I'm not saying like that's a bad thing or whatever, but it is definitely, if you're aware of it, you can benefit from it. I'm Australian, I'm gonna benefit from it, and I'm excited. But just remember, so property is one of the drivers of the price, supply and demand, and there's going to be a whole lot less supply and more demand from all these people coming. So invest in property and you will become wealthy. See you guys next time. Bye.